Hi, Clase de Algebra Uno. We are going to talk about solving equations today. It's probably going to be a two-video series here. The first video is going to be one-step equations. So you make sure that you watch this one-step equations first, and then the next video will be a two-step equations. Go ahead and watch both series today, this weekend, so that you're ready to go Monday. A lot of the one-step equations is going to be review. So let's just go ahead and get started so that you can get some review on the one step, some good practices, and then we'll get into multi-step, which becomes a little more complicated. So let's get right into it. All right, solving one-step equations using addition and subtraction. First thing we want to do is when we have a problem with double signage, we don't want to leave double signage. We want to rewrite the problem if there's double signage. One of the things I've noticed with my pre-AP algebra students is that, my pre-AP geometry students is a lot of them use double signage. I don't know if that's a middle school thing or what, but anytime you have double signage, that means two signs right here, you need to get rid of that double signage. If the signs are different, it comes out to be negative. If the signs are the same, it comes out to be positive. So the first thing to do is rewrite x plus negative 7 equals 2 as x minus 7 equals 2. Okay? Notice how the positive disappears and minus takes over, so now we only have one sign instead of two. Another example of that would be m minus 5 equals 8 again. If the signs are the same, you put a positive there. Take the two signs away and put a positive there. Okay? So instead of n minus 8, you're going to change that to m plus 7 equals 8. I know the numbers are switched there. That's just a little typographical error. We'll just go with it. The two negatives turns into a positive. That's all you need to worry about. Okay, so how do we solve equations then? What we want to do is we want to eliminate the number next to the variable. Ideally, when we're solving any equation, the goal is to get the variable by itself. So if the number next to the variable is positive, I'm going to subtract. Okay, that's the opposite. Opposite of positive is subtract. The opposite of minus is add. So we're going to focus on the opposite. That's one of the key factors in solving equations, is doing the opposite. Whether it's the opposite operation, adding and subtracting, those are opposite operations, or it's the opposite operation of multiplying and dividing. So if the number next to the variable is negative, I will add. So positive, I'm going to subtract the number. Negative, I'm going to add the number. Let's take a look. Let's look at the number there. The number next to the variable right here is positive 6. We have x plus 6 equals 15. This is a positive 6. So if I do the opposite, I need to subtract 6 from both sides. Once I subtract 6 from both sides, what I'm really doing is I'm eliminating 6. 6 minus 6 becomes 0. And x plus 0, of course, is x. So what I really want to do here is eliminate that 6. And the only way I can eliminate a positive 6 is by subtracting a 6. If I have $6, I've got to take $6 away. So that cancels that out. On the other side, 15 minus 6 is 9. So that leaves me with x equals 9. And you just solved a one-step equation. Let's take a look here. Another thing we need to make sure that we remember is that we always want to look at the sign to the left of the number, not to the right, not behind. The sign always goes in front of the number, not behind it. This is particularly important when this is a 10 minus k. What that is that's making that k negative, not the 10. So we're looking at the number, the sign in front of the number. So in this case, the 10, that's what we want to get rid of because that's the thing by the variable. The 10 is positive because there is no sign. If there is no sign, that means the 10 is positive. Okay? So if it's positive, I want to go ahead and subtract 10 from both sides. That 10 minus 10 is going to eliminate, make it 0. 0 plus k just leaves you with k. And then equals 22 minus 10 is 12. You can always go back and check your work by plugging in 12 for k and seeing if that equals 22. And if you take this 12, put it here, 10 plus 12 does equal 22. That's a way to check your answer. Okay, here's another example. We have d plus negative 2 equals negative 6. Again, we have double signage. You can see the double signage here. Their signs are different. Since the signs are different, we're going to put a subtraction sign. So it's instead of d plus negative 2, it's just going to be d minus 2 equals negative 6. Now the number next to my D is -2, so I need to get rid of that -2. The way I get rid of that -2 is do the opposite. The opposite is to add 2. Add 2 to both sides, because what you do to one side, you must do to the other side. So add 2 to both sides. It's going to eliminate the 2 on the side next to the D, leaving with D equals -6 plus 2. If you need to use your calculator, use your calculator. -6 plus 2 is 4. Okay, let's do another example here. We have x minus 3. Again, this minus sign is the number in front of the sign in front of this number. To get x by itself, we've got to do the opposite of that minus 3, which is to add 3. So we're going to add 3 to both sides. -3 plus 3 cancels out, leaving you just with x. And 4 plus 3 is a positive 7. So x equals 7. Again, if I substitute the 7, in for x, then I end up with 7 minus 3. 7 minus 3 does in fact equal 4. Again, we're looking for the balance on both sides. And that is how you solve one-step equations using adding and subtracting. So just hold tight real quick, and we will work on solving one-step equations using multiplication and division. Alright, we're back, and now we're going to solve equations using multiplication and division. Okay, so we just did addition and subtraction. Now we're going to do multiplication and division. Let's take a look. Again, still thinking opposite and still thinking about balance. So multiplication and division are inverse operations of each other. That means, again, another way you look at it is they are opposite of each other. Okay? When solving a multiplication problem, you divide. So inversely, when solving a division problem, you multiply. When solving a multiplication problem with a fraction, you do the reciprocal. Okay? This is probably the most complicated part of solving an equation using multiplication or division. When you solve a division problem, you multiply. I already talked about that. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into some examples. So let's start with solving a multiplication equation. Okay, 8n, when you have a variable laid up against the number, that means you're multiplying that number times the variable. So 8n can also be read as 8 times n equals 32. So 8n equals 32 is the same thing as saying 8n equals 32, or 8 times n equals 32. So this is multiplication. Again, our goal is to get this number right here away from the n on this other side. We're going to do that by doing the opposite. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So to get rid of the 8, we have to divide both sides of the equation by 8. So here we're undoing the multiplication by doing the opposite, which is division. So 8n equals 32, or 8 times n equals 32. Divide both sides by 8. And you're going to end up with n equals 4. If you want to check that again, all you have to do is take this 4 value here and plug it in where the n is. 8 times 4 is 32, and that is absolutely correct. Okay, let's look at another example. We have 4c equals 96. So again, 4c can also be read as 4 times c equals negative 96. To get c by itself, since we're multiplying 4 and c together, we have to divide both sides by 4. So divide both sides by 4. Okay, now I want to point out one difference between adding and subtracting. When we divide both sides by 4, this is not canceling out to make it a 0. 4 over 4 is a whole, right? So 4 over 4 is 1. We want to find out what 1c is worth. That's why we're doing this. Okay, so the 4's cancel out here, and then negative 96 divided by 4. Using your calculator, you find out that c is equal to negative 24. Again, if you have a problem with the negative and positives, make sure you use your integer rule book. Let's look at another example. 13s equals 195, or 13 times s equals 195. The opposite of multiplication is division, so we're going to need to divide this 13 to get it away from the s. So to divide 13 by both sides, the 13s will cancel each other out. And then 195 divided by 13 leaves you with s equals 15. Alright, let's solve a reciprocal problem. Again, this is probably the hardest type of these problems there are. Okay, but you got to know how to do it. And again, don't be afraid of fractions. Fractions become very easy and actually more beneficial to work with the further up in math you get. Alright, let's say we have 3/4 x equals 9. Again, if I read that properly, 3/4 x is the same thing as saying 3/4 times x equals 9. Okay, I got to get rid of that 3/4. So normally I would divide. However, you cannot divide a fraction. There's no such thing as fraction division. Instead, you multiply by a reciprocal. Okay, so the reciprocal of a fraction is the flip. Okay, it's when you flip it over. When you take the numerator and put it into the denominator into the numerator. Or you, in this case, you take that 3, put it on the bottom, put the 4 on top. That's the reciprocal. So we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So here, 3/4, we're going to multiply it by 4/3. So what happens is these end up cross-canceling. The 4's cancel and the 3's cancels, leaving me with 1x. But I have to multiply 4/3 on both sides. And when you multiply a whole number by a fraction, you take that whole number, multiply it by the top, and divide by the bottom. So let's take a look. Cancel out the 4's, cancel out the 3's, leaving me with x equals 36/3, because 9, right here, 9 times 4 is 36 over 3 now. 36 divided by 3. You have to reduce and simplify if you can. 36 divided by 3 is 12. Okay. Let's take a look at another example here. We have 3/5 k equals 6. Again, we got to multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 3/5 is what? That's right, it's 5/3. Multiply both sides by 5/3. Okay, the 5's will cancel out, the 3's will cancel out, leaving you with x. 6 times 5 is 30. 30 over 3. And 30 divided by 3 is 10. Okay, let's take another look at another example. Again, the more examples we do, the better off we are. 1/6w equals 12. Okay, got to multiply by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 1/6 is 6 over 1. I don't know why that 12 is off, and I apologize for that. Those 6's will cancel, and again I got to multiply 12 by 6 as well. The 6's will cancel, the 1's will cancel. 12 times 6 is 72 over 1. If I reduce 72 over 1, I get 72. Alright, so now let's solve a division equation. Okay, these are probably the easiest of all. So let's take a look. When you have okay, sorry about the brief technical issue, but when you have k divided by 9, the opposite of divide is multiply. So this 9 is dividing into the k, so the opposite of that would be to multiply across. So I'm going to multiply both sides. We're going to undo the division by multiplying. I'll multiply both sides by 9. The 9's will cancel out. And my screen is off a little bit, and I apologize. That leaves me with k. 11 times 9 is 99. So k equals 99. Again, I apologize for the screen delay. Let's look at another example. T divided by 3 equals 7. Multiply both sides by 3. 3's cancel out on the left side, leaving you with t equals 21. Last but not least, let's look at it this way. It's a little backwards, but it's the same thing. We're still trying to get the number away from the w. Multiply both sides by 2. The 2's cancel out. And then 18 times 2 is 36 equals w. Pretty simple. And that's it for solving one-step equations using addition, subtraction, and multiplication and division. Okay? If you need to go through that and pause it, take notes, please do that. Don't underestimate how easy this is. The problems do get harder than that. So check out section 2 for solving multi-step equations.